Zoning and Historic Commission. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, we do have quite a lengthy agenda, so we're going to go through to see which ones needs to be pulled and the ones that need to be approved, because they seem to be already approved administratively. So we want to go through that. And the first one is 2013-586, a resolution authorizing NBC Garage Partners to construct, install, and maintain an area encroachment. BL 2013-528. It's an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Property to accept the donation of real property for use and benefit of the Metro Parks Department. BL 2013-529. It's Wester Home abandoning a portion of alley number 277 right away. BL 2013-530. Allen, an ordinance to abandon a portion of the alley number 968 right away and easement. BL 2013-531, Dumney, Hunt, and Harrison, an ordinance authorizing Metro to negotiate and accept permanent and temporary easement for the Whites Creek Stormwater Improvement Project. BL 2013-532, Dumney, Hunt, and Harrison, an ordinance authorizing Metro to negotiate and accept permanent and temporary easements for the County Hospital Road Stormwater Improvement Project. BL 2013-534, Dumney, Hunt, and Lancaster, an ordinance to authorizing Metro to abandon one sewer manhole and approximately 15 linear feet of an existing public sewer main and to accept one sewer manhole. BL 2013-535, Dumney, Hunt, and Lancaster, an ordinance authorizing Metro to abandon approximately 160 linear feet of an existing public sewer main and easement and 1,500 linear feet of existing public water main and to accept 1,550 linear feet of 8-inch and 12-inch water mains, 5 fire hydrants, and 207 linear feet of an 8-inch sewer line. Okay. BL 2013-536, Gilmore, Dominique, Hunt, an ordinance authorizing Metro to abandon approximately 140 linear feet of an existing 96-inch public sewer main and easement and approximately 110 feet of existing 15-inch water sewer main and to accept approximately 108 linear feet of a 96-inch public sewer main. BL 2013-537, Dominique, Hunt, and Davis, Scott Davis, an ordinance authorizing Metro to abandon approximately 436 linear feet of an existing 108-inch public sewer main and 762 feet of a 30-inch public sewer main and associate easements. BL 2013-515, Hunt, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance by amending the mention at Fontenelle Specific Plan District to permit a rural resort for lodging for up to 140 rooms. BL 2013-516, Claiborne, a request to amend the Metro zoning code pertaining to specific plan districts. Are there any that need to be pulled? Okay, Council Lady Allen.
Yes, I'd like to pull 516 for an amendment.
Okay, we'll pull it. Anything else? Okay, considering all the rest of them, move for consent. Any question or discussions? All in favor? The rest have been approved. Now, 2013-516. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you. I had just proposed that we make two small changes. The purpose of this bill, if I understand it correctly, and Bob can address it if I don't say it right, is to I think change the language so that it can be used in a broader term that has I think perhaps been appropriate in a number of occasions, but wasn't lining up exactly with some language. And in the process of broadening it, they had taken out the request for a site-specific plan, and I had asked them if we could perhaps put that back in as one of the options that a person asking for an SP could so what that would leave us with is that they could supply a conceptual site plan, a regulatory plan, or a site-specific plan. Because much of what I have used an SP for in my neighborhood at community meetings has been to talk specifically about things on that site that have helped the community accept what the owner was asking to do, to work together with him to come up with issues that would, whether it was buffers or materials of construction, that's been a very useful part of the tool, and that I didn't want to lose that in the process of trying to broaden it. And then secondly, they had, the language had changed the automatic 4-year review to a 6-year review if it was requested by a number of different entities that had the ability to request that. And I would just request that we leave that at the 4 years that it has been, but rather than having it still be automatic, that it would be it would happen if it were requested by the entities that are listed in the proposed bill. Does that make sense? So I'd ask for your support for the amendment.
Okay. Councilman Glover?
Let me ask this question, Bob.
Are we? Okay. Bob, let me ask you this question. By changing the language to a possible review every 4 years or 6 years or whatever we end up landing with, some of the language in here that disturbs me is that it can be requested by just a council member without the permission of the owner. And that, to me, is a little disturbing because a lot of these owners obviously have a great deal of money invested in various projects and land, et cetera. And as we've all seen over the last 5 or 6 years, economic changes can happen pretty rapidly. And so therefore, the thing that I guess bothers me a little bit about this is I wish we could have it added and maybe have a discussion down the road with owner's permission before we, as council members, or you as planning, just step in and do maybe a rezoning on them and mess up all their financial plans they've got for a given property. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, please.
Okay, I guess it is working, sorry. The goal of this amendment was it had several parts to it. It was to, number one, make it consistent with the way the PUD 6-year review was currently in the zoning code, just having consistency so that developers and people that rezone property would know what to expect, so that we didn't have two sets of rules for the same basic process in the zoning code of having to go back and look at rezonings a few years later to see if they're still consistent with the long-range plan. So originally when these reviews for PUDs and SPs were set up, it was just for that. It was because we had several PUDs that were approved in the 70s and 80s that were coming back to life in the early 2000s, and the neighborhoods around them had changed. And so when the SP ordinance was adopted in 2005, the thought process was to put that in at the beginning so that there would be some sort of review process for the council to determine whether those rezonings were still appropriate based on the land use policy in those areas. And so the criteria was set up to determine first whether it was actively under development or whether it was inactive. And so if it's determined to be inactive, the commission makes a recommendation to council. It doesn't mean that it's automatically rezoned. I mean, ultimately the council would still have the decision on whether to rezone it. And we just had found since 2005 that out of about 215 SPs that had been adopted by council, there was only 2 of them that had gone back and actually been rezoned. And those had been done in working with the property owner. Signature Tower was one of them in the downtown area, and part of the reason for that is a new zoning had come into place around it. The downtown code had been adopted, and so at that point it didn't make sense for that SP to remain when they no longer had plans to develop it. So that was one where we actually worked with the property owner, and they rezoned that plan to downtown code zoning so that it was consistent with everything else around it. So I think it's just a tool. It's a tool that allows the council, the planning commission, or the property owner who owns that development to come in and ask that it be re-reviewed to see if it's still consistent with the land use policy around it. So and then the other goal of this amendment was to just clarify some of the language that's in there that was brought out in the court case relating to the Gallatin Pike SP. So there were several purposes to this amendment in terms of clarifying language, making language consistent with how other parts of the zoning code read, and really still keeping the council in control of the process as it is today. I mean, right today, the council makes final determinations on whether to rezone property, and so that is still there.
Councilman Bidney, do you have a comment? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Hello. Oh, thank you. So an SP is, if I understand correctly, is sort of like a compromise between the property owner that owns the property to be developed and the community at large that owns property around it, correct?
Well, an SP is a flexible form of zoning where there can be things incorporated into an SP plan that can't be incorporated into a straight rezoning. When you have a MUL rezoning or a CS rezoning, the standards are set by what's in the zoning code. With an SP, there's a plan that goes along with it or conditions of approval that go along with it that can determine what happens with that property. So yes, there can be discussions with the property owner about and the neighbors about what goes into that rezoning, more so than just a straight rezoning.
So we are interested in knowing all the property owners' opinion about the impact of the rezoning of that property.
Say that one more time, please.
Well, we go through a process of letting people know that there is going to be a community meeting to talk about rezoning, so they have an opportunity to provide feedback as property owners outside that property to be developed, right?
Right. There's a process that is advertised.
I'm asking because I want to make sure, how will property owners know that there is a review coming up for something that they agree upon? If we change it from mandatory to where people have the right to do it, there are so many SPs in Nashville that it's kind of hard to keep up. So the question will be, it's part of the legislation we're discussing today to where people will be notified that is getting ready to be the potential for a review.
If one is under review, then the Planning Commission would notify the property owners that it's going to come up for review, and notify the council member that it's going to come up for review, and we would let you know the date of the commission meeting prior to that occurring.
But if those 6 years are getting ready to come up, and how will anybody know that the 6 years are getting ready to come up on that particular SP?
I mean, they can call and ask the planning department when those are approved, and I mean, we've talked about providing a list on our website, which would be fairly easy to do, that would tell when a project was approved and when a 6-year or 4-year mark comes up. So that's something that we can put together pretty easily and put up on our website, and we can organize that by council district also. I think that will be, I mean, I like what Council Lady Allen is proposing, but the only concern I have is how will people know that those six years are up. So, but if the planning department is committing to transparency like that, which I know you are, because you have some great maps there that are available to the community to learn what's going on. So I think that will be good with me. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Holloman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on some of the discussion, Councilman Glover. When I was a city attorney, the municipality I represented, we didn't have SP zoning, but we did have PUDs. It was a pretty standard concept, and PUDs in that jurisdiction and in a lot of jurisdictions that I'm familiar with actually expire altogether in many jurisdictions after a period of time. And the concept is similar to what Mr. Lehman said, that you go in and negotiate with the municipality or the elected officials, say for traffic improvements that would be necessary for your development or density based on current build out in that area. But if you didn't vest your rights or start your development within a certain time, you had to go back and go through the whole process. And that's not something that we do here. And we've seen several situations where that was somewhat problematic. I know that when Councilman Foster was on the council last term, one of the things that happened to him early on in his time is there was an area that I knew from growing up that was really just a big wooded area. And years ago, a PUD had been approved, and nobody really realized that. And when they showed up to pull the permits, the neighborhood felt like there was this whole development that was happening that they had no say in. And Councilman Foster was without the ability to really have any impact, which was hard place to be as an elected official. My only point in saying that is that here we don't have PUDs expire. We're actually pretty generous in the way that we treat developers in terms of once you get that approval. And so I think for us to maintain a system where, I actually would say I thought that the old system was fair. I just talked to Council Lady Allen about this, where automatically after 4 years we reviewed it to see if it was active or inactive. Keeping in mind that if you start the work by law, by state law, you're entitled to finish that work. But if you haven't started the work, we automatically review that to determine whether or not you really were actively pursuing it. And if not, then the council could move forward. So all that is a way to say that the bill before you, I think, is more generous than most municipalities as written and more generous than what we had previously. So I think it's, I think it's a little bit on the light side, to be honest with you, but certainly not something that's too stringent.
Councilman Glover?
Let me just get one more clarification on this. The current law or ordinance as it stands requires planning to review these plans every 4 years. This, and correct me if I'm wrong, Council Lady Allen, this would, if we adopt your amendment, then the council member, the owner, or planning could request a review. It's not an automatic review that takes place of the property. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Council Lady Allen?
Before we vote on the amendment, which I think is what comes up next, I just want to distinguish the bill as proposed before I have added my amendment is what has clarified that a council member or the property owner or someone on planning commission can request a review after 6 years. My amendment is just to change that term from 6 years to 4 years. 4 years is what the automatic review is now. So step one was to change it from an automatic 4-year review to a requested 6-year review. My amendment, which we're going to vote on next, is to change it from a requested 6-year review to a requested 4-year review, which is at least a time that happens within a council term. So just to clarify, I want to make sure everybody understands what the amendment is as opposed to what the bill is.
Okay, you want to?
And I would move to vote on the amendment.
Okay, you have an amendment on the floor. All in favor? Second. Amendment is adopted. Having no further discussions, no other items, excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. We voted on the amendment. Now we voted on the bill as amended. I'm sorry about that. All in favor of Bill 2013-516 as amended? Any comments? All in favor? 2013-516 is adopted. And that concludes the agenda for the planning zoning meeting. Thank you.